Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Mortgage Coach Tuesday morning interview. Every Tuesday, 9 o'clock, we are here to deliver the mortgage industry's #1 sales meeting. And I think it's so easy because how awesome our community is. Today, we have Rene Rodriguez as our guest. What is up, Rene?
What's going on, my friend?
What's going on with you, buddy? Super pumped to have you, and even more fired up to see you in person in a couple hours in Vegas.
I wore a golf shirt for my good friend Kai McBride, so he knows that I don't always wear suits. And I'm in hot weather here in Vegas, so this is good.
So we did, and say that again, Kai?
I said, I'm wearing a hoodie, you just can't see it.
Well, we also invited Coach Kai McBride to the call just to keep Rene honest. I said, hey, you can either heckle him or you can ask great questions. We'll see how he shows up in today's call, what kind of mood he's in. So before we get into the interview, I do want to shine a light on a few things that have taken place in the Mortgage Coach Mastermind Productivity Group over the past week. I just want to shine a light on the Mastermind Group for a couple reasons. One, great place for the best of the best to engage, ask questions, answer questions, connect with each other. But hopefully it's going to be even more powerful over the next couple of days because I'm going to be at Mastermind 2018. Kai's going to be there. Rene's going to be there. At least, I think, 1,400 mortgage professionals are going to be there. We're going to be in Vegas, connecting, having fun, learning together. I am going to be MC of the Executive Summit, which super honored and pumped to drive a mastermind with a lot of mortgage executives in the C-suite. I did put a post in the group this morning. So if you have a question that you'd like me to bring into that summit, feel free to post it in comments. I did get permission from Stephen Marshall to broadcast that. So my team bought me a cool little broadcast camera. I don't know how good the mic's going to be. I don't know how well it's going to work, but we're going to do our best to broadcast some of the panels in this group. So if you just want to check out what's going on, hopefully it will be useful. And you'll be able to hear some of the conversation. And if you have questions, let me know what they are. So I wanted to make sure you guys knew that. Also, I want to shine a light on a conversation I had with Josh Metal on Saturday morning, 9:30 Saturday. Josh made time. He's on track for helping 1,200 families this year. So, I mean, him and his team are killing it. That's one branch out of Utah that is going to do 1,200 units. And one of the things that I think Josh and his team do really well, and it's really special, is they prospect for 2 hours a day from 8:30 to 10:30 every day of the week. I mean, he is just, dedicated to that rhythm. And the other thing is they have this gratitude meeting they have for 15 minutes before they prospect. So he took 11 minutes with me and walked us through how he preps for prospecting. And he shared some best practices of prospecting. So check out that interview. It's in the group. It's on Facebook, and it's also in our YouTube channel. And then one last resource before I bring in Rene and rock it out is we released and published our what's it called? The lead conversion playbook. And basically what we did is we took our transcript of Scriptpalooza. We also picked a few other interviews that I've done that were very on point for lead conversion. And I mean, we spent weeks working on this thing. We collaborated with a lot of the nation's best loan officers. We created this playbook that has these 3 core concepts, these 7 strategies that if you follow the core concepts, if you execute the 7 strategies, you optimize conversion. Again, conversion is different based off the leads, off of the market conditions. But if you want to optimize your conversion, whatever your lead source and your market conditions are, follow these 3 core concepts and these 7 strategies, and you will kill it. So with that said, make sure you read that. It's not a 2-minute read. It's not a 5-minute read. It's about a 20 to 25-minute read. And then if you really want to crush it with that playbook, you really should make it a couple 1-hour sessions where you listen to some of the interviews. But do check that out. So I wanted to shine a light on that. Rene, anything you want to say about those resources before we get into our interview and the conversation that we have planned?
I can't believe you're giving away this stuff for free. I think it's fantastic. I went through in detail and it is the playbook. It is what people fly all over the country to do. Like I was thinking about this, they fly over to do office visits to get those kinds of secrets, how people run through their process, what they say, when they stop, how they do this, all those talking points, the points in the process that can add value versus most people just skip over those points. And I'll say this, in almost 20 years of doing this and working with some of the top producers, every producer has a presentation. Every top producer looks at their entire value stream and says, how can I add value there? And you uncovered so many of them for free, which I mean, I can't rave enough about what you've been doing, bud. This is great. And kudos to everybody that contributed.
Well, first of all, I'll say I still think there's no substitute for flying all over the country and doing site visits with top producers,
Sure.
because while it's a great article, there's tremendous content. There's nothing like the experience of site visits. There's nothing like masterminding. There's nothing like having your own coach to hold you accountable week after week. But thank you. That was really nice for you to say, and we're proud of the content that we put out. So with that said, we're going to kick off the interview. I'm going to say a few nice things about you, Rene. I'm actually going to give Kai an opportunity to help tee you up, since you've got two guys that know you well. So we'll give Kai a chance to tee it up. But you know, here's my thought on Rene, the speaker that you're going to listen to right now. First of all, when it comes to the art and science of influence, there's no one that is more knowledgeable, just like the skill, the art. I mean, this guy has studied his entire life on the science of influence, the science of sales performance, personal performance. And then I would say, in terms of his ability to, you know, whether he's on stage in person, which I've seen many times, hopefully today he'll rock it out and putting the pressure on him. He's also just incredible at teaching, coaching, and mentoring and leading from stage. So, you know, the topic of the day is amplify your influence, and with a little bit more of a focus on how you can do that with your referral partners like Realtors. But I'll leave it to you to kind of connect the dots, whether this is, you want to take it and apply it to your power conversations, or apply it to your referral partners, or you want to apply it to lunch and learns. If you really, you know, don't multitask over the next 40 minutes, and you really take notes, and if you're listening to this recording, if you do more than just entertain yourself and listen, but if you take notes and you really become one with this content, I promise you more business, more partners. So, Kai, anything to add to the introduction of Rene before we let him rock?
Other than the fact that he's a very nice-looking gentleman, Cuban gentleman. You've said so much already, but what I can tell you is that personally, Rene has helped me create a lot of my influence skills, specifically on stage, in front of groups. And it's the thing about Rene is that on one hand, he's really going to make you think. He gets deep into the brain and how it works. And if you're a cerebral Greek geek out there, I know a lot of you are going to completely latch onto this and just geek out, but it's also very simple. And as you listen to him, if you just catch some of the points where he keeps it really simple, I think that's where he's really helped me over the years. There's a few things that he'll teach you that are extremely impactful, that can amplify, it's like the title of this webinar, amplify your results dramatically. So I'm jumping on this call. Even if I wasn't a panelist, I'd be watching this. I love all of Rene's stuff.
Thanks.
So Rene, we'd like to bring Rene on stage, and everybody give him a hand. Put your mobile phones down. Don't look at two screens, and let's go, brother. Rock it out. Take us to the next level.
Awesome. Well, thank you both very much. No pressure at all. But it's always an honor to have a place where you can share what it is that I believe, what I've studied. And, you know, Dave, I want to, because you sent me all that, the homework and the research, and I sat down, and it was, you know, you almost made it sound, hey, I feel bad, I want to make you do this, but it was a gift because there was so much content in there. And I started asking myself, what can we do to take these concepts and apply it specifically to what it is that you've been teaching? And I think kind of keep that same flow of learning that people have been going through this. And so I really latched on a key concept number 2, which was, how do you double down on your humanity? And what is that thing that's going to really separate you from this sort of this digital push and some of these bigger companies that have resources and money and marketing dollars, and what's that thing that will always differentiate you? And so I wanted to kind of wrap a couple skill sets, or at least one specific skill set that will, I'm going to say a bold statement. I think this is probably one of the most important skill sets needed in not only in your profession, but in your personal life as well. And it's how to be a conversationalist. And I'm going to sort of frame up how we get to that, but end up in a conversation sequence that you can have, that you can utilize. It's so simple, but yet it is really hard in practice because you have to unlearn some things. But first I want to get our mindset there, and I've kind of got my sort of flow of what I want to do. The reality is that rate compression and margin compression is happening. And I've been, since 2007, I've been saying that this is coming. And there was no pressure to improve the process before because the margins were so high, you could screw up a loan and it didn't matter. It didn't matter. You could just say, okay, I screwed up a loan 16 times. I still made several $1,000s. Manufacturing isn't the same. They spend billions of dollars to drive cost out of every little piece of the process. And that kind of pressure is going to happen as people get smarter and things like that happen. And so to put it sort of a frame around it, I want to tell you a story about two islands, and I want you to kind of think about this. And these are two competing islands. I want you to think this first island is this massive, huge island. It has all the natural resources that you need. It has all what do you call it? Natural resources. It doesn't have to import everything. It sets the market trends because it has zero competition. If it actually manufactures something, it actually sells it. And so it doesn't really have to pay attention to demand. There's also a lot of room on this big island. So if it overproduces, we just store it up on inventory and get ready for the demand to catch up, and we roll it out the door. And so if I were to ask you, what is the quality philosophy of an island like that? Well, since there's no competition, they set pricing trends and nobody else is doing it. If they make it, they sell it. Their quality philosophy is, you know what, let's just keep the machine running and get the product out the door. And that's pretty much it. And so I want you to think of this other island. It's a very small island. And this island has zero natural resources. In fact, it has to import everything. And so now all of a sudden it's trying to compete with the big island, but since it has to import everything, now all of a sudden the costs are higher. Pricing trends, product trends, everything is set by the big island. So it's trying to compete in this place. And it also has to pay very close attention to demand, because if it produces something, it has to sell it. Because if it doesn't, there's no room in this small little island for inventory. And so what would be the quality philosophy of this little island? And I'll ask that question, Dave. What do you think that quality philosophy of that little island would be?
I mean, a lot, but make the most of what you got.
Absolutely. Be number one, right? Because if we make it, it better sell. We can't afford to not do it. So I just gave you actually a little history lesson. I just told you a story of these two islands, which really is the United States and Japan right before or right after World War II. So the United States had everything that it needed. Japan was completely demolished and it had nothing, it yet still had to compete on the world stage. And so I love that philosophy I love that story because it shows what Japan had to do to become relevant again. And so this guy by the name of W. Edwards Deming went to Ford and Chrysler and GM and said, hey, let's talk about this thing called quality. And they said, great, let's talk about it. And he goes, well, first of all, we got to stop the machine from flowing because you've got all these. He goes, wait, we don't stop the machine. What are you talking about? He goes, well, you got to stop it to fix these issues. He said, no. See, when the machine runs, we make money. That was sort of the Western manufacturing mentality. And after years of beating his head against the wall, he goes over to Japan, meets this guy by the name of Taiki Ono. And Taiki Ono and W. Edwards Deming created what's today is known as the Toyota manufacturing system. And history has written the story about just how Toyota completely demolished General Motors. One small statistic, General Motors had 85 facilities in North America. 100% of them were unionized. They lost per vehicle $1,700. And every time they made a vehicle, lost $1,700. Japan had 13 manufacturing sites, 0 of which were unionized, costs were already low, and their profit per vehicle was over $2,400. And in that specific year, they made, I think it was like 2005, General Motors lost $4.9 billion, while Toyota made $7.9 billion. And so you can see just the value of quality. And so when we think about compression or pressure to compete, it also means we have to improve the quality of the things that we do. And so quality in our terms, because you're not manufacturing per se a product, but you have steps in a process that either add value to the transaction or add cost. Some of those things have to happen. Some of those things don't have to happen, but you have to, in this world, we have to start evaluating all of those. And so I'm going to focus specifically on this process of how do we make our conversations of highest quality? How do we make those relationships of the highest quality so that when we have those interactions, number one, it ensures more repeat business, but two, people remember us. We have a stronger connection. Our ratings online go up. Our ability to resolve problems become easier. I mean, the benefits are endless. And so when we look at this concept, and I loved hearing Jeremy Forcier, if he's on this, what's up, man? Good to see what you were talking about. He says we're always cold calling, and it's true. People, I laugh when people say, "Oh, cold calling is dead." I'm like, wow, when was the last time they were in sales? Because the reality is the market is shrinking, and as they said, realtors are falling out. So you've got to constantly be able to do that. But the best sales professionals don't even look at it as cold calling. They look at it as expanding their network, getting to know new people, reaching a little bit further, finding more leads. I mean, this whole concept of cold calling already puts an umbrella of negativity and, more importantly, of fear. And so I'm all for marketing. I'm all for generating leads in that sort of way. It's not my method because I'm not a marketer. I've always been somebody that's been a salesperson. And how do we get these skill sets to do that? And so I'm going to be talking more about that. But I would tell people that marketing and selling are two completely different skill sets, two completely different ones. And very rarely do you find a sales professional that does both really well. And so what I get scared of is I watch sales professionals use marketing as a cop-out to selling, where they say, okay, well, I'm going to send out all this stuff and hopefully somebody will call me. Say, okay, let's see, will they call me? Versus a sales pro says, okay, I'll send things out, but I'm going to continue the forward activity because it's the only thing we control. And so we all know when it comes to sales math, if we make more sales calls, we make more phone calls outbound, we're going to make more money, right? And so we talk about all the time, there's only two ways that can help you make more money: either increase the level of activity that you engage in, or the second way would be to increase the quality of the conversion ratio within that. And so I can make 100 phone calls if I'm brand new and maybe only close one, or 10 and close only one, but maybe somebody's more experienced, make 10 and close 9. So obviously the only way to beat that person is to make 100 and close 10 while that person made 10 and closed 9, just outwork them. So we can make up in numbers what we lack in skill, but over time that skill curve goes up and we start improving our conversion ratio. So this skill set is really designed around the quality side of it. But I always ask, of course, the question, and I've got to deal with this reality, this little word behind me here of rejection. That's the only reason why people don't make more cold calls. I mean, people can poo-poo a cold call or a phone call, but no one likes dealing with rejection. And so one of the things that I want to sort of unpack is why we even have this fear of rejection in the first place. Where did it come from? Why is it there? And most people, if I ask that question, will say, well, because it sucks and doesn't feel good. And, and then people say, well, because of my childhood. Okay, all that stuff's right. But we have this fear of rejection. I'm going to just dive right into it for one reason and one reason only, is because we have an expectation.
Hey, Rene.
Yes, sir.
Rene, before you dive into that and get ready to dive, I want to throw it out to the community. So in questions right now, if you're killing it, like you're hitting what you think, and I don't even want to use the word cold calling, but prospecting, on time, sales time, whatever term you want to use, if you're hitting your goals and doing it enough, just put, I'm killing it, or some version of that in questions. And if you're not, why not? Is it fair? Is it don't know what to say? Is it, I'm too busy with other stuff? Whatever the reason is that you are not spending more prospecting, calling, assuming you're not hitting your goals. If you're hitting your goals, just let us know you're hitting your goals. But if you would post that in questions right now, I'm going to throw it to Rene, and then in a minute, I'm going to read off some of the answers. But, the more we can make this like a live event and we're getting feedback from the audience, the better. So again, folks, start posting in questions of the GoToWebinar. What are some of the reasons you're not hitting your numbers or you're not putting in the time? But back to you, Rene, and at next break, I'll read off some of that stuff.
First, and I should have said that before, Dave, as always, do just interrupt me. I'm going to keep going here, but just dive in if you want me to stop or repeat something, or if you want to catch a question, I'll just pick up where we left off.
We'll do. And Kai, you do the same thing, buddy. Keep it going.
For sure. He's already sent me 3 texts, so we're good. I'm just kidding. So with this concept of rejection, I want to understand it in a little different way. And I say we have it for one reason only. It's not because it sucks. It's because we have an expectation. And I use this example of, and this is a whole nother seminar, but why good guys finish last. And so all the nice guys, well, I'm nice, and why don't people want to talk to me? I say, well, because you're a liar. They look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, what do you mean I'm a liar? I said, well, why are you nice? And they say, well, because that's why I was raised. I say, great. Well, you're nice to her. Why don't you be nice to her too? And then they look at me like, well, I'm like, oh, see, because she can read through, there's a hidden motive behind your niceness. And so there's a sense of how do we get back to reality? Again, you can see there's a whole rabbit hole. We can go down that path, but the same principle applies, is that when you prospect, you have an expectation, and anybody can read through that expectation. And it's very simple, is that you have this expectation if you want people to like you, right? You want people to like you. And so when you try to get people to like you, you throw out value propositions, you throw out, maybe you name drop people that you know, triangle for trust, products, pricing, presentations, whatever it is, all in hopes that this will turn into something that people like. And when they don't buy, that means that they don't like you. And all of a sudden, you don't feel good. And nobody wants to do that. It's sort of just natural. We avoid pain, seek pleasure, all of that sort of stuff. But I want to offer out a different approach to this and saying, we have to stop trying to get people to like us. And here's what I mean. When you approach somebody and you have this selfish motivation of, I want you to like me, it is selfish, but we don't just intend it to be selfish, but it is. And so I'm going to offer this out to you, is that you just stop trying to get people to like you. And I want you to do something very, very different. Okay, this is where the twist happens. If I can make this one mind shift twist, this one change in how you think about it, all of that fear goes away. And so stop trying to get people to like you. And I want you to now proactively start to try to like them. And so what does that mean? Okay. It's not that, well, I don't know if I like them. We'll see how that works out, or we'll see if I like them. This sort of this elitist approach. It's not that. It's proactively trying to like them. If you were to look at a pile of dirt and you knew there was a diamond in there, what would you do? You'd dig, get your fingers dirty, and you look around and you'd spend hours trying to find that. I want you to start thinking about every person you meet has something about them. You just don't know what it is yet. And you want to find it. You want to proactively try to seek it out. And think of the conversation difference of somebody trying to get you to like them versus me saying, I am so interested in what you're trying to do. And so that comes from a philosophy and that you have to have first before you do this. See, I personally believe that everybody has a story. My company has trained over 100,000 people. I have heard tens of thousands of stories, and I have made so many mistakes in saying, wow, that person must be this way. And all of a sudden I hear their story. I'm like, oh my God, the person almost died. They overcame cancer. They saved this person's life, whatever it is. When you hear that enough, you start realizing, wow, okay, everybody does have a story. And if I get past this thing of me trying to get people to like me and me saying, let me just go find people that I like. And I'll tell you this, here's what's really cool. If you look at Dr. Cialdini, Science of Influence, one of his laws of influence is the law of liking, which means that we tend to like people who like us. And so the experience of somebody trying to really like you naturally starts creating this reciprocity, if you will, of, I really like this person. I feel good around them. This is something really different. Okay. And so now that's the concept of it. So now I go into the question of how do you do this? Right?
Real quick, Rene. Rene, this is really relevant because we're all going to see each other in Vegas. And this was something that Rene and I spoke about when I first started speaking. It's how do you get over nervousness? Because it's not just presentation one-on-one, but maybe you have to present in a big group. And the thing is that it's not about me. It's not about me and how I look good. I go up there and I have one objective, which is to teach something valuable. And that's it. And once I stop thinking about me and I keep my intention on helping people, or if you're selling something, you keep the intention on providing value and helping them with whatever product that is, it takes everything away. The focus is off you. And it's so relevant because we're all going to be speaking the next couple of days. And I think about that every time I go on stage. I tell myself it's not about me.
So right. It's so you're so accurate. Yeah, please go ahead, Dave.
I
think Dave, we're breaking up a little bit. I'll continue here until Dave, when you get hooked back up, we'll jump in. But yeah,
well,
Kai. So, there you go.
I think
go
this.
Ahead, Dave. Lose him. Kai, can you still hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. I think he's having technical problems.
Okay. Not a problem. So yeah, Kai, I think you're absolutely dead on. And once we get past this mentality, and the hard part is we have this pull of wanting to be really good because you've been asked to be on stage. So to say, well, we want to make sure we add value, but you have to be able to balance what adding value is with also that self-expression of who you are. And so in this concept of going one-on-one with somebody, moving away from trying to get people to like me into how do I like them. And so I want to go into, okay, how is that? Because that's what I've been sort of challenged with. And people say, okay, Rene, that's a great concept, but how do you do that? And a lot of the things that I talk about are things that I've had to sort of go back over the years and say, okay, how is it that I do that? What is it? What's the process? What's going on? And so the thing that we're going to learn, and I want you to write these things down, we're going to have to learn 4 skill sets. And some of these are come naturally to us. One of them we know, but we probably really suck at. But the other, maybe one of them might be a little bit new. And the first skill set is this thing we call listen. Okay, I'm going to write it over here. Is how to listen to somebody, right? And listening is probably the most misunderstood concepts, and because the reality of listening is that you have to actually have a blank mind. But most people are listening with the thought of, well, what can I chime in on? How can I respond to that? And they're not taking in everything that's going on. And so with this process, we have to first, okay, how do we actually listen? And when you're in, I do this Amplify leadership workshop, and we go around, we say, okay, we're going to have to first be sold on the fact that you all suck at listening. And so we go through this little exercise, and at the end, people are going, oh my God, I really don't listen. I'm constantly, all these things are running in my mind as I'm hearing you talk. And it sometimes takes 2 hours for people to finally click, and the reality is like, wow, I really am not listening. I'm listening with the intent to respond versus just really in receiving everything that's happening. And so listening is one piece. The next one is how to observe behavior, right? So you listen, and then how do I observe body language, voice inflection, eyes? You know, you might be talking to somebody and they go, oh, and all of a sudden just this little movement in there, or they might go. Now, just that little observation tells you everything. I tell people all the time, I said, I look when people talk to one another and I observe how they react. And most people look at the talker, whoever's speaking. I don't look at the speaker. Most of the time I'm looking at the receiver. And that's the part that people miss, because the receiver may go, and all of a sudden, if you missed that the receiver was doing this, you might have missed the fact that that message just didn't get across. And so we want to constantly observe behavior as people are talking, as they're listening, all these things, because it tells you so much of what's going on. The next piece, this is a difficult one that people don't understand either. It's this concept of how do you validate, okay? How do you validate? And validation has a wide spectrum of how it is. Sometimes a validation is like, oh, that's a validation. I heard what you said, it affected me, and I shared it back to you. Sometimes a validation is like, no way, or wow, I never thought about that before, or that's really amazing. And so there's something that says, I heard what you said, it had an effect on me, and I fed that effect back to you, which validates what's going on. The listener, when they feel validated, guess what they want to do? They want to share more, right? I used to have a friend of mine, a psychologist, that he learned how to listen like this. And I would talk, and there was no validation whatsoever. There wasn't any, nothing. It was this. And it was one of the most difficult conversations to have, because I didn't know if I was having an effect. But if we could learn how to be in touch by listening to what's going on, observing behavior, and you can tell when someone's passionate about something because their whole body language changes, everything's there. And if you can pick up on that, and you say, you know what, oh man, I want to chime in on that, or I want to expand on that piece. And so with the listen, we have to observe, we have to validate, but the last one is another tough skill set, is how do you expand on that conversation, right? And so how do you expand on the conversation? When you hear something that you like, how do you expand? And so here's the model in terms of how I want you to think about it. Let's see if we find a different color here. So I want to see if Dave has anything before I move on to this next piece. Dave, did you want to chime in? Kai, do you want to chime in on this next piece?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Hopefully you can hear. So my phone didn't work a minute ago, but I was trying to connect what you were saying to video. So the concept of, if you don't focus on yourself and you just focus on your audience, love it on them, delivering value to them, and the more unselfish you are, the more giving you are, the easier it's going to be, whether you're on stage or whether you're creating a video. So I just wanted to connect that last thought to video.
Sure.
And if you're listening to the recording, you know, really, if you are not, whether it's a mortgage coach total cost analysis video, so that you're amplifying your voice when you're helping a borrower make a decision, whether it's a Facebook video and you're either providing some news, you're telling a story, you're explaining a strategy. If you're not doing that in today's world where video is just becoming a ubiquitous method of communication, you really need to dig in why. Why am I not doing that? And I just can't urge you enough. If you want to be, you know, killing it as a referral-based local lender, and you want to build digital friends, which is one of the paradigms, one of the 3 core concepts to conversion, you know, you're just missing out. You know, you're missing out on a language that the world is speaking. So I wanted to connect that. One other thing, you know, I want to make sure people, like, you're teaching us intellectually some ideas and strategies that I think we can all get a grasp on, but it's a whole nother thing developing the skill, like going from I know to I'm doing. And I do think sometimes that requires an experience, you know, like you were really nice to say, hey, how nice it is that my article is free. But let's face it, I'm going to give you the information. You're going to understand it intellectually. It doesn't mean you're going to be able to actually transform yourself. And I know, Rene, you do transformational experiences. So I don't know if you have any coming up soon. If you do, if you could let people know about it, because you know, I'm bringing you on here to serve. So if you have an event coming up, please share that. And then also, you know, whether they have your event or not, if you could make sure whether you answer it now or sometime throughout this call, tell people how they could go from I understand and I know what you're sharing to I'm implementing, I'm executing, and I'm upgrading myself.
Love it. Yes, for sure. In fact, just to answer that last point, where I'm going to go here next is I'm going to try to attempt to do that last piece. And so I want to interact with you and Kai a little bit on that so we can kind of put it into practice. But the takeaway that I want to give on that is an exercise that you can take back to your sales meeting that you can go back. I call it the hot seat. And that'll take, I tell people, if you just take the next 6 weeks and every week you just put one new person in a hot seat and you practice the skill set, you're going to see, number one, the first time you do it, it becomes a topic of conversation going forward. You're going to take it to happy hour, you're going to take it everything, and then people just naturally start practicing. They're going to practice on their wives, they're going to practice on their husbands, they're going to practice with their kids. This method, this little game that I'm going to show you is designed for that. So I really appreciate you pointing that out, Dave, to move from yes, I know to how yes, I can do now. In terms of yes, I do what's called Amplify Leadership. It's Amplify with 2 I's at the end, not a Y, which is trying to be creative there. But we did our first one. In fact, Kai is very similar to the event you and I used to do together. But we got another one coming up in Las Vegas. We got another one coming up in Dallas. In fact, we're actually adding even 2 more after the last one that we did. It was very, very successful. But yeah, I think we can probably put a link somewhere in there. But amplifyleadership.com, or just send me a message. Get on Facebook, send me a message directly as well. So
I will wait for time. I want to make sure we question this because if you're listening to the recording, there'll be a link below to the next event. I really can't emphasize. You need to upgrade yourself and your skills of influence. Can't emphasize enough. Highly recommend it. Will be a transformation for you.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, and it is, just to give you, this course is very intense. So it's limited at 10 people. We put them on front of the room 4 times. They're video recorded. They're broken down completely, rebuilt back up. People have very big personal transformations. It's a pretty unique process. But let's get into this next piece. So I really want to make sure that we walk into I want to stay true to the mortgage coach sort of philosophy of make sure people walk out of here with something they can do. So we've got this listen, observe, validate, expand. And so let's go through the typical conversation goes this way. In fact, it's I'm dispelling something that might be a little taboo here to say this, but the typical way that people teach us to talk is that form. Was it Ford? The Ford process: your family, occupation, recreation, dreams. And I got to tell you, I'm not a fan. And here's why. Because here's how the typical conversation goes: is you ask a question saying, "Okay, hey, where are you from?" And people say, "Well, I'm from Georgia." Okay, great. What do you do for a living? I'm an insurance agent. Awesome. What do you like to do for fun? There's this, FRD, right? Well, I like to snowboard. Great. What are you looking to do in the future? Is my dreams, right? And so if I go 2 more questions like that, it is not a conversation anymore. It is now an interrogation. Hey, what do you do? Because the reason it's there is because none of these questions have anything to do with the previous question. There's just one, where were you on September 7th? And what do you do for your work? It's like, wow, just none of this connects and there's no depth to it. And so I want to dispel that, and I want us to stop doing that, okay? And I want you to think about this first piece, first question that comes up, and I want you to then listen. You're going to listen to what they said, and you're going to find something. I don't care what it is. You're going to see what it is, and you're going to observe their behavior, validate in some way, and expand on one thing that you liked about that question. And I want you to go then to the next question, but deeper. Okay, so where are you from? They say Georgia, right? And if I say Georgia and I see a smile on their face, I'm like, cool, Georgia. I've heard it's like super hot there, right? There's my validation. I've heard something. I put my own twist on it. I heard it's super hot there. How long have you been there? And all of a sudden, I'm a little bit deeper here. And they say, well, I've been there about my entire life. In fact, it's yeah, and it definitely is hot. And it's like, wow, your entire life. And then so I go, and it's hot. I go, so what do you do to stay cool? So that's right here. I go a little bit different. I'm like, wow, it is a little bit hot. What do you do to stay cool? Well, you know, we like to actually go boating. And so we like to jump in the water and all this sort of stuff. And I'm hearing boating. I like boating because I'm observing this. I'm observing a smile and what's going on. And I'm going, boating, I love boating too. Now here's the challenge. I have a boat too. And what most people will say is, cool, you have a boat. I have a boat too. I love going on the lake and blah, 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 blah. And now all of a sudden, this conversation where people's intent was to relate to them, just move the emphasis off of the person speaking and onto them. And it's not about the other person anymore. It's about me. And so what ended up, your intent on validation actually became a one-up. Somebody says, so where are you from? Hawaii. Oh my God, I love Hawaii. We've been there like 20 times. So people would say, well, that's wrong. I said, well, here, think about it this way. Let's pretend that the person said they were from Hawaii and you had been there 20 times. And you go, instead, you just kept that in for a minute. You just kept it in and you kept it about them and you observed the behavior. You said, Hawaii, oh my God, that must be amazing. How long have you been there? Or what part of Hawaii, what island? And they tell you, that you just keep going, the process. And let's say in 20 minutes or half an hour, or whatever, and they start realizing because you've gone so deep with them. They go, so what do you do? I say, well, you know, actually, I go to Hawaii all the time. They go, you do? And all of a sudden, they're super excited, but there's this little hidden message to say, you cared enough about me to not share that you went there because you really wanted to hear me. And now all of a sudden, I can't wait to hear about Hawaii, and this connection just happens right there. Where if I would have just talked about it right away, it moves them off the spotlight, puts you in the spotlight, and you've lost touch of what you're trying to create there. So again, to be able to actually listen, you have to have a clear mind to hear one thing that you liked, dive a little bit deeper, and go a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. Okay, so let's practice this for a minute. I don't know, Kai, I think let's practice with you for a minute.
Yeah, that's a great technique, by the way, because I think a lot of people, when they ask questions, they sort of factually interview. They just say, what do you like to do? How old are your kids, etc. But if somebody gives you a question, again, go deep. So if somebody says to me and I say, what do you do for a living? They say, I'm a doctor. And I might look at them and say, so is that your choice or your parents' choice? Something that makes them think, right? And then they might look at them and go, well, to tell you the truth, you know, my parents wanted me to do it, but I didn't. You know, they might get deep into their emotions too. And so if you can think of questions like, oh, you like Hawaii? Is that something that you normally do with your kids? Is that like a dream bucket list thing that you did? And so there's follow-up questions to a lot of these things. And so when you're thinking about your board questions, there's always a secondary question that'll make them go deeper. And Rene is, the other thing too is that there's also intent. I mean, I think a lot of times we can just talk about things, but that's small talk. I mean, I think that's really what defines it. It's one level, single layer small talk. And until you can go deeper, right? And what's your intent in having the conversation? What are you trying to do? Otherwise, you just had a great, because how many of you have had these really great conversations with real estate agents, but nothing came out of it? And I think that one of the things that Rene's always taught me is that what is your intent? Where are you going to lead the conversation? And what do you have to dig deeper out of it? But did you want to do an exercise with me? Or?
Yeah, I was going to say, let's try this together. So I'm going to ask you to put a different hat on right now and just be Kai. Normally, you're not not Kai the coach, you're not Kai anything, you're just Kai, and answer however you want. And I'm going to go through the typical Ford surface level conversation, and then we're going to redo it again, and then we're going to go down, sort of dig a little bit deeper so people can kind of see the process. And what I want those listening, this is the game we call the hot seat. And so I put somebody, usually, maybe it's whoever it is, they put them in the front of the room because, if you have a sales meeting, everyone's kind of sitting in a circle around a team. So we put somebody in the front, and I'll ask that person one question. And so I say, where are you from, John? And then I've got Bill over here to my left. Bill's job is to listen to the response, observe his behavior, validate and expand on one thing that he liked. And then John answers, and then Sally, the next person, her job is to listen, observe, validate, expand to the question, and it goes around. And if anybody doesn't know what question to use to expand the conversation, it's for one reason and one reason only. They weren't listening. They weren't listening because they were going, oh, I don't know what to ask. Well, if you don't know what to ask, you weren't listening. He goes, yeah, I know, it's so hard. I was trying to think of what to say. I'm like, oh, right, I'm not supposed to do that. And so then we start over. And the person asks the same question. So where are you from? And they just listen, observe, validate, expand. And it goes around. And usually those first three people on that point sometimes might take 20 minutes just to get past that. And so as they go around, now all of a sudden you get 10 questions deep, and all of a sudden you've gotten to know this person in the hot seat in a completely different manner. Even people you've been working with for 10, 15 years, they go, wow, I never knew that about them. So let's play it, Kai, just play along with me, take it easy on me. So from a learning perspective here. So I'm gonna ask the first question. So Kai, do you have any family?
Family? Yes.
Or I'm not even, I'm gonna do it different. So Kai, where are you from?
I'm from LA. Pretty much born and raised.
LA. Cool. What do you do for fun?
Golf, sometimes surf.
Do you have any kids?
Yeah, I have 2 daughters.
What do you do for a living?
I am a business coach in the mortgage industry.
Right. What do you like? Where do you like to vacation?
All over. Just took my daughter to Greece. Next year, gonna go to the Bahamas. Try to do a family vacation every year.
Great. Do you like to cook in or eat out? So I think we can stop there, right? Because we get the point that this is going nowhere, right? And
you're a dull person. I'm about to walk away from this conversation.
Exactly, because we're asking questions that none of which have anything to do with the next question. And you gave me so many opportunities to just, man, I could have dove in on some of this. So we're gonna start over, and we're gonna practice this little sequence here. And so Kai, where are you from?
LA, born and raised.
Oh, born and raised. So born and raised your entire life in LA?
Yeah, pretty much, except for 2 years in Texas.
Well, what took you away to Texas for those 2 years?
Work, and what brought me back? A girl. Did we lose me or did we lose Rene?
I think we lost Rene. I was not talking just because I've had such bad connection.
Yeah.
A girl. I'll pick it up and hopefully he makes it back. So a girl brought you back, eh?
Yeah.
You know,
a girl brought me back who I eventually married.
Love that. And you have 2 kids. You mentioned they're in high school.
One's just
what do you love to do? Oh, awesome. What about the other?
Yeah, I'm a big golfer, especially in LA. You can golf 50 weeks out of the year.
I love, no doubt about that. What about your kids? Do you get them out on the course at all?
I've tried, but my older daughter's more of a dancer, and my younger is an artist. So I've noticed about you on Facebook. It looks like you guys have a lot of fun together. Yeah. We have a good time though. They're doing something creative and athletic, so I appreciate that.
I don't know. I mean, it looks like you guys have so much fun. You know, how do you have time to be a business coach? And what's that? How do you balance life and business, Kai? Because you look like you're just having so much fun. You know, do you really work?
I don't really believe in the balance concept. I just believe in when you're doing something, just give it your all, and at the moment. So if you're gonna have fun, have the most fun possible, and if you're gonna work really hard. I'm not really thinking about balancing the other thing. It's just whatever it is that I'm doing in the moment, you just give it your all.
Yeah, I think that shows just how you program says how much they got, and two, how much fun they had getting there. So I think that's definitely comes across as one of your core values.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to make the most out of everything.
Yeah, so got a break, and while Rene will be back in a minute, a couple things I want to just call attention to what I did, and I think you could really apply that same strategy, with real estate agents. It's, I integrated one I saw on social with conversation, so it made it clear that, I'm watching you, I'm paying attention to you. You're a friend. I think the sooner that you start treating someone like a friend, the better, and I know Rene is doing this question sequence, but I'll let him deep on that because I know he'll be back. But I want everybody on this call from a mortgage coach perspective. The sooner you call people by the same name that their friends call them, like I'm David Savage, but if someone ever called me David, they're not my friend. And I'm exaggerating to make a point, but even in your database, make sure that you've got everybody's first name. Make sure you've got everybody's mobile number. Make sure that the people and the realtors that you want to do life with and you want to do business with, you're following them on Facebook, you're engaging with them. And when you do have conversations, you're intentionally integrating that. I interviewed Cindy Ertman, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, and I actually have interviewed her twice over the past month. And one of the things that, if you listen, she is a student of Renee's. I know she's a good personal friend of Renee's, but she's doing this. I mean, she even talked about the process when she meets with a realtor for the first time. First half is business, second half is personal. And part of the magic of Cindy's success, again, she's an iconically successful mortgage professional, is just how quick she creates friendship. And part of that is the intent she went into it. I really want to like this person. I'm looking forward to liking this person. I'm looking forward to learning on how I'm going to be able to help them. Or, by the way, not help them. If Cindy, through that meeting, wasn't able to personally connect, wasn't able to uncover opportunities to help, let's go find someone that we can. So I just think what you're learning from Rene right now is just so powerful that sometimes it's, not meeting more people, it's going deeper, connecting, and this interview feels great. Rene, have you been able to make it back yet, buddy?
I don't see him connected, but to add to that, what I think about is when everybody has a reason for doing something, right? Everybody has a reason for vacationing someplace, living someplace, doing what they do for a living. And if you just ask, so we always ask the what question. The next question to ask is usually the why question. So why do you do that? Like Dave, you recently moved up to the Pacific Northwest. Instead of saying, oh, that's cool, I'll look at you and I'll say, well, why? Like you love it down in Orange County, down by the beach. Why the extra change? And you're going to come back with a story, and you're going to feel that I care. I'm not just small talk to you, right? So that's generally what I would say in terms of a quick tip for everybody. The second question is generally the why question after the what question, and then you can go pretty deep with people because they'll just go to town with the answer.
I love that. Really, really good point. And again, folks, that Cindy Ertman interview was fantastic. I think it will cover a lot of those thoughts. So while we're waiting for Rene to come back, Kai, you've heard the conversation that everybody have heard.
I'm back.
Is there any? Oh, there he is, man. Well, we carried it for you. But I'll go ahead and hand the mic back to you.
I apologize. We literally just lost power here, so it's great timing. Can you still hear me okay?
We did a guitar solo while you were gone. We were good.
No, I was listening on a different thing, so that sounded great. Where do you want me to pick up on? Because I think you guys were having that conversation in terms of where did we?
Well, it's your call. I don't know how much I followed the type of teachable sequence that you would have done. So I just kept the conversation going and tried to emotionally connect with Kai. That was kind of the hey, I heard your thing, but you go ahead and pick it up.
So what I heard in terms of, I'm going to try to switch over to my headphones here so I can hear you guys better. But what I heard was that you're going deeper with it and being able to connect. But what I want people to see is the difference between sort of that linear surface conversation and something that goes deeper on it. And that's Are you guys there? Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. And so that's the linear sequence. And the practice, this is when you go around in that circle and you start asking that question, you'll hear somebody like I loved when Kai said, I said, what do you like to do for fun? And he goes, well, I just took my girls to Greece. I'm like, whoa, you Greece? So you pick up on that piece, and all of a sudden that validation piece comes into play, and you're able to really dive in. Because here's the part that people forget, because if you're hearing this and saying, oh, that sounds disingenuous, it's only disingenuous if you're not interested. And that's why it has to begin with, do you, and why are you doing this? And if you can begin with this, I need to go out and find a reason to like people. And there's another reason why you want to do that. Because when you like somebody and they like you, you know what's really easy to do? Business. Give referrals. Trust. If this person likes you and you like them, it's easy. Now, here's the cool part. You're going to find in this process some people that you just don't like. Like, wow, man, they were kind of jerks, and it was really hard to connect with them. And then I say to you all the time, I said, then get off the call graciously. And sometimes people will say, you know what, yeah, I've got this relationship or that relationship, and you say, no, hey, no problem. Sounds like everything's going great. I want to thank you for your time, and I wish you the best. Maybe we'll connect with you next time. You get off the phone, and instead of feeling rejected, you start feeling like you dodged a bullet. Saying, wow, thank God I don't have to do business with that person. And what I have come to find, and I spent the last 2 years going around the country, going to different branches into sales meetings, because people would say, Rene, does this really work? And I would say, go to Zillow.com, find an agent, choose your area, pick an agent. I throw my phone on the table and I say, dial anyone you want. I'm going to do it live. And what I found is that if I followed this process, 88% of the time, I would get an appointment. And I had people challenge me with some of the biggest, meanest, toughest agents. And I just stayed true to the process. Now, when I first did it, I called as Rene Rodriguez, and they said, literally the owner comes in and goes, that's not fair. You're calling as you, and they can look you up online. I said, okay, I'm going to call someone's assistant. And the rest of my calls were as someone's assistant. And the process works perfectly. And in fact, most of the time people would say, hey, are you going to be at this meeting too? But what ends up happening is you have to first, for this to work, you have to first ask yourself who you are and who do you want to do business with. And I say, personally, I want to do business with people that I like and that are easy to talk to. And if I can do business with, if I can find people that I really, really enjoy, then all of a sudden the rest of it's really easy. And so there's another piece of this that I would like to add onto it that kind of helps. See, I make a decision every single year of my life, and I re-up this plan, and that is to surround myself with people that are like-minded, people that are committed to excellence, people that are constantly learning and growing. And that is something that I constantly am trying to embrace and expand upon. And so with that driving philosophy, I am now making these phone calls in search of people that fit those same values. And when people fit those same values, guess what? If they fit that, they're looking for that, they also want to be a part of that. And that conversation becomes so easy where we get together and all of a sudden, man, this conversation was simple. But I tell people, I said, so once you get the appointment, what are you going to do? I go, you just listen, observe, validate, expand. Now, if you haven't picked up on it, if you wrote these notes down, there's a real simple way of remembering this. Just underline the first letter of each one of those. Listen, observe, validate, expand, and it spells out love. Now, I don't usually start out with that because it sounds kind of cheesy, but it is a very simple way to be able to connect with people and to remember the process that's there. I think we're getting close to the end of our time here. Were there any other questions or things that I can go maybe a little bit deeper on?
While we're waiting for questions, I know a lot of people sometimes have this feeling that they don't like real estate agents. Let's face it, we've all felt that way before, and especially when you're trying to relate to them. I did something about 10 years ago which really helped me with that. I did an experiment where I went out for 90 days, 3 whole months, and I interacted with every agent possible. And I told myself I cannot ask for business. So that way my intentions were pure in just getting to know people. And after 90 days, I realized, hey, these are pretty cool people, and they're people too. And I started to learn how they think. And that's the whole thing that you said from the very beginning, tying that down, is that taking away the expectation. Once I took away the expectation of having to close or wanting something from them, I became more interested in figuring out who they were. And that's something that you can do if anybody wants to experiment with that, even for a week. It makes a huge difference in how you look at them and how you engage with them and the questions you might ask.
So powerful, Kai, because and people get confused that just, because we're both also huge advocates of being able to ask for what you want, ask for the deal, be aggressive in the sales process. But if you want to get through to people, especially in today's environment, you have to be able to connect with them. That's the piece. Remember, if we go back to that double down on your humanity piece of it that we started with, how do you do that? You have to be able to truly listen to what's important to them. And you also have the ability to say, I don't really like them, and you move on. But in the process, you're going to find so many people that you like. And anybody who says they don't that they don't like realtors, it's my first telltale sign that they don't call enough realtors. They've had a couple of experiences, and it's much easier to say I don't like realtors than it is to actually go through and meet with them, because they're just humans. And if
I'm extremely sarcastic when somebody says that to me. I say, oh, you mean you're talking about the 10 realtors that you've spoken to? Unless you've actually met all 10,000 realtors in this area, you can't say that you don't like realtors.
Exactly. Absolutely. So I think that, when you look at this process, so what I urge people, and I want you guys to do, is take this back and just play a little game. Say, we're gonna try this. We're gonna follow this little process of, we're gonna listen, observe behavior, validate, and expand. And if somebody doesn't expand on the question that was asked, or asks a different question, you start over. And you've got to be strict to the process, because the accountability is what helps people realize whether they're listening or not. And then what's going to happen is that people are going to take this little love process, and they're going to take it to happy hour. They're going to take it to their kids. They're going to take it elsewhere. And it's going to be something that constantly is being reinforced and practiced. So as I sort of wrap all of this together, and wrap all this up, we talked about this key concept that Dave and Mortgage Chris put together in terms of how do we double down on our humanity to make us sort of Amazon proof, if you will. We learned about the importance and the reality of the compressing margins and a higher competitive environment. We've heard the story of the two islands and why that's sort of the perfect analogy of what's going on right now, that we got to compete in a very different place. And hopefully you'll see this as not only a method to be able to make cold calls easier, but also a way to connect with even the people that you're already doing this with. I always talk about cold calls because that's the most difficult environment to do this. But don't forget, this can be used with people that you know already. And when you do that, it's that much easier. It's so much better. And what's crazy about this is that I can't tell you how many people have come back to me and said, my wife thanks you, because I just realized after this that I wasn't listening. Our marriage thanks you. My kids thank you. I realized I wasn't listening to my kids. Go back and do this with your kid once. And here's a little secret too. They may not respond to the first 6 to 10 questions. Stay with the process. Keep expanding. What do you mean by that? Wow, I heard you say you like lollipops. Well, what about it? Why a lollipop? Why not a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? And all of a sudden, you're going to get to know your kids in a completely different way. Get to know your spouse.
Are you saying people are used to being ignored?
Well, yeah, I think
guys, this has been an incredible conversation. I want to make sure that anybody, I know you mentioned it earlier in the call, but anybody that wants to do a workshop with you and take it to the next level and upgrade their skills, how can they reach out to you? How can they sign up for your next event? If you wouldn't mind just reminding everybody, Rene.
For sure. The easiest is go to Rene Speak, S-E-E, Rene, R-E-N-E, speak.com, and connect with me there. There should be a link up at the top where it says Amplify, and other ways there. But it's a fun, super intense 3-day experience that I will tell you, it is transformational. That's the goal. If you're ready for something that gets rid of all of the fluff and you dive deep into the practice and the how of leadership, the how of speaking, and the how of communication, the how of influence, that I can tell you, I would be honored to have you join us there. And so Dave, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you for what you're doing for the industry and the community, and for forcing us to share and to continue to add value to people.
No, it's an honor. So guys, I am at the airport on my way to Mastermind. Remember, come up and say hi to myself, Rene, Kai, and look forward to seeing you guys both at Mastermind. Hopefully this was a valuable call for everybody. If you did get a big takeaway, or hey, if you have a question, we will be posting this in our Mastermind group later on. Feel free to share your takeaways in comments. And also, if you have more questions for Rene, either PM him, reach out to him in the channels he mentioned, or even ask questions in our Facebook group, and we'll get to them. Have an awesome day, everybody. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Rene.